Greetings, I'm Jeff Saunders and I'm continuing this series of introductions to couples work and the dynamics that couples get caught in. So in this third video, I'm wanting to help you understand that what happens when couples interact is that there's dynamics occurring on particularly two dimensions. The first dimension is the standard challenge of everybody getting on with everybody else, having clashes around needs. They want to do different things at the same time, and so one pattern that especially arises if you're raising children, of course. One pattern is the difficulty of facing life with stresses that are a standard everyday routine for couples. But behind that is our childhood pattern, which I've referred to. I call it the intrapsychic pattern. And I'm going to give you an example of a couple I worked with just last week, just to give you an example of how this plays out. This couple is in many ways reasonably typical. So let me talk about a couple I will call Sam and Susie. Sam and Susie are lovely people. But they've got patterns that keep tripping them up, as happens to all couples. Sam's pattern is that he tends to become avoidant, as is typical of most men. And what then happens is he finds himself getting embroiled in tasks and work and so on, and then his partner gets upset that she's not getting enough of his time. So she's the standard connector in as much as she wants quality time together, time to talk things out, talk things through, give affection to each other, and so on. But Susie comes with an extra challenge. In her childhood, she was very distant from her parents, who basically left her alone. She was a very quiet, shy child. And so what happened was, when she got into a relationship, all the needs for connection that she hadn't had met came to the surface. And as happens often with connectors, they come as anxiety, but they can come as more than that. So for example, she often felt hurt when he wasn't giving her enough attention. She felt disempowered. Now, her whole life she had been disempowered. So that disempowerment kicked in. And then she would catastrophize the situation, which would increase her anxiety and increase her distress, and then she would get worked up and eventually she'd get angry. Now this is a very, very common pattern for connectors to one degree or another. She was doing it to a high level because she got so worked up. So when her partner was less attentive than he would have liked to have been, or he would often be, she would take that as rejection, not good enough. She had a belief system that in fact she just wasn't good enough. So that belief system would kick in, and when she felt that, she would go into a distress that she struggled to manage. So she would come across as highly emotional, highly critical of him, and highly needy. And what he would do is back away, and he would also do a lot of avoidance, the withdrawers. He would struggle to quite understand where she was coming from, because her style, of course, was completely different than his. Now this is very standard in couples. Most couples do not understand the dynamics that are behind each other's behavior. So what happened for Sam is that he would find himself puzzled as to what to say. And when he tried to say something, it wasn't the right thing. Now this is a very, very common pattern that withdrawers find, and the reason it's common is because they really don't know what's going on with their partner. They don't understand the emotional pattern going on in their partner, so they just relate as they've done to their mates and so on over the years, and they try to solve the problem and swear that it'll be fixed, or they don't know what to say at all. And over time, what happens to withdrawers, they frequently just close down altogether, because they realise that it doesn't matter when they open their mouth or how they open their mouth, it's going to not come out well. Now, Sam, in fact, was a loving person. He was very touched. I was very touched by the way he related to Susie in this room. He was sitting exactly where I am sitting today, and he was holding her hand. He was looking into her eyes. He wanted to help her, but did not know how. And this is a dilemma couples have. Even when they're well-intentioned, they simply don't know what to do, particularly withdrawers, because they don't know how to cope with the emotional component of what their partner is going through. So what they tend to do is either back away totally, or they eventually make an effort to reach out, and when they don't get heard or it doesn't go down well and their partner gets more and more angry that the connection she's wanting isn't happening, they can then get angry as well. Now, as I'll talk to you way later in the course, there are 3 patterns that particularly kick off angry responses with couples. One is a right versus right argument. So that's when both couples are trying to establish what they believe is the right view of reality, and in doing so, the more they push for that, the more they disempower their partner. And then that often means that one partner, most often the connector, will close down. They will close down, hold back, and instead of putting things out, they will just go ahead and do things that they need to do in life. But what will happen is that they will slowly get more resentful, and that is very toxic for a relationship. And some couples realize that arguing isn't good, and both of them close down. And you'd have to ask, well, if they both close down and they're both trying to avoid conflict, why don't they just have a quite quiet discussion, a calm discussion? Well, that would be great if they knew how to do that. Most couples do not know how to do that. So on my course, I'm going to teach couples how to do communication that doesn't go pear-shaped. It actually isn't really difficult to do, but there are a few ground rules that are important to keep in mind when you're doing communication that works well. So today's message is that the pattern that couples get into is reasonably predictable, and the various patterns that they kick off in each other and are unseen by each other mean they really, really can't bridge the gap, because how do you bridge a gap that you can't understand? So in truth, in my course, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to help people understand this gap, and I'm going to teach them how to bridge it. And I'm going to teach it for quite a range of anxious styles and the avoidance styles, in other words, the connector styles and the withdrawer styles. I'm going to show that the truth is most people are reasonably well-intentioned. Susie, for example, would lose it, and she would get upset that she would lose it with Sam because she loved him. But when he didn't hear her and didn't get her, she got so distressed, she got so much more worked up than she ever wanted to. And Sam wasn't at all happy that he would back away and close down, sort of give it a day or two, sometimes more than that, before she would settle down enough for him to come back. And of course she had no idea why that was happening, so she just felt rejected, unimportant, cast away, unloved, and so on. So I'm wanting you to get an understanding that the dynamic that goes on between couples doesn't mean they're bad people or wrong. It means that they're all damaged. We are all damaged, but to varying degrees. So some people will react a lot more than others. Some people won't react much at all. But the point is, it's very, very hard if you're a couple not to react to some degree. And the longer the relationship goes on, the more reaction is happening. Sometimes that reaction is not intense emotion, because both couples have learned to go into mutual close down. They both become withdrawers. And that's the way they keep everything cool, calm and collected. But of course it means that they don't have the quality engagement that actually they got into the relationship to have. What is worse, they train their children in the same pattern, something I will deal with in some time in the future. So the first course I'm calling Couples Therapy 101, and in fact I've called it Integrated Relationships Therapy, because it really integrates this material I'm presenting to you, integrates a number of different schools of thought, because I'm wanting to put them together in such a way that they're easy to understand and they're easy to implement. So do sign up if you want to be part of the course, the Integrated the Integrated Relationships Therapy course, because it's going to be important that you get to see how this works and you train your children in better dynamics than you've grown up to be caught in. Have a good day.